Hello, Bethlehem Lutheran friends and family. Thanks for joining on this Meditation Monday, if it is indeed Monday when you're watching this. Whenever it is that you would watch, I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to share a reading from Father Richard Rohr. He is a globally recognized ecumenical teacher whose work is grounded in Christian mysticism, practices of contemplation and self-emptying, and compassion for the marginalized. He's a Franciscan priest of the New Mexico province and founder of the Center for Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque. And there he also serves as the academic dean of the Living School for Action and Contemplation. He's written a bunch of books, and I know there's many in our Bethlehem community who are enjoying his reading and growing from his reading and devotion. He sends out a daily devotion over email. So I'm just sharing one from Tuesday, July 7th, and hopeful that it speaks to you as it did me. While I read, I invite you to ponder 3 questions, and these are questions that Richard Rohr asks us to think about as we're doing the listening. So if you want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil and write these 3 questions down and just have them in front of you as I'm reading, you can pause now and go get your pen and pencil, or pen and paper and pencil, and write down these questions. The questions are: what word or phrase resonates with or challenges me? That's the first question. The next one is: what sensations do I notice in my body? And what is mine to do? I'll post those 3 questions here so that you can look at them. So as I read the reflection from Rohr today, please just be mindful of those 3 questions and maybe even jot some notes down if you want. And then when I'm done reading, you can pause the video, take a moment to just think more about those questions, and then return to the video for our closing prayer together. So now from Father Richard Rohr, The Wisdom of Job. Theology does not by itself provide wisdom in crisis. All theology must become a living spirituality to really change us or the world. It's disappointing that we Christians have emphasized theology, catechism, and religious education much more than prayer and practice. The biblical book of Job is probably one of the greatest books on prayer that has ever been written. It breaks our stereotypes of what it means to communicate with God. If we view Job's story as a journey into an ever-deepening encounter with God, we keep the question of suffering from becoming an abstract debate observed at a distance. It's a text that only fully makes sense to those who have felt suffering, been up against the wall, at a place where, frankly, God does not make sense anymore, and we no longer believe that God has a plan. Job loses his livelihood, his savings, his family, and his health. His practical religious friends appear as self-appointed messengers to speak to what they are sure is God's answer to Job's suffering. They offer the glib, pious platitudes of stereotypical clergy. And what they do is try to take away the mystery, but they cannot solve the problem. God says you cannot solve the problem of suffering. You can only live into the mystery. The only response to God's faithfulness is to be faithful ourselves. Most of the things Job says to God in his pain are not what Christians have been trained to say to God. The pretty words are mostly gone. There's no swirly talk, as writer and pastor Molly Baskett calls it, that the Christians so love to put into their prayers. Instead, Job dares to confront God, the very thing that many of us were trained never to do. In fact, we call it blasphemy. During Job's crisis, he yells at God, accuses God of all kinds of things, speaks sarcastically, and almost makes fun of God. He says, if this is a game you're playing, then you're not much of a God. I don't need you, and I don't want you. It's this kind of prayer that creates saints. Yet, we cannot pray that with that authority unless we know something experientially about God. We cannot pray that way unless we are assured at a deep level of the profound connection between ourselves and God. It takes one who has ventured into that arena where we say the angels fear to tread. Ultimately, Job's story reveals that God cannot really be known through theology and law. God can only be related to and known in relationship, just like the Trinity itself. Or, as the mystics assert, we know God by loving God, trusting God, and placing our hope in God. We cannot really think God. Job's religious friends and advisors have correct theory, but no experience. They have thoughts about God, but no love for God. They believe in their theology. Job believes in the God of their theology, and that's a big difference. The first is information, the second is wisdom. All of that was from Father Rohr, and I invite you to look back at the questions. What word or phrase resonates with or challenges? What emotions do I notice in my body? Or what sensations do I notice? And what is mine to do? Feel free to pause and sit with those questions for a little bit and think about the difference between thinking about God and knowing and trusting God. The difference between the theory of God or the theology of God and the relationship of God. And now we'll close with a word of prayer, again from Father Rohr. O great love, thank you for living and loving in us and through us. May all that we do flow from our deep connection with you and all beings. Help us become a community that vulnerably shares each other's burdens and the weight of glory. Listen to our heart's longing for the healing of our world. Now we name things that are resting on our hearts right now. We lift them up to you, knowing that the Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words to express. Knowing you are hearing us better than we are speaking, we offer these prayers in all the holy names of God. Amen. If you would like more information on any of the writings of Father Richard Rohr or the Center for Action and Contemplation, feel free to email me or shoot me a text message and I can point you in that direction. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your week.